Alright, welcome back to Building in Public episode 21. This episode is about friction, how it's one of the biggest things that holds us back as creatives into doing what we want and achieving what we want to achieve. Just a side note, but I am on a new lens. I'm on my 35mm 1.4 by Sirui, and I don't know if I'm going to post a video about it alone specifically, but I've been loving it. I've been using it for the past week now, and I might show some clips here of me using it and some clips I've gotten with it, but I'm loving it. And I think this frame looks beautiful. I have spent some time getting the composition and getting the lighting right. This episode is about friction. One of those things that I've been encountering a lot as a highly ambitious creator, creative, pursuing a lot of different things. And the big thing that it talks about in the book, The War of Art, where it talks about, so friction pretty much means all the things in between you and your desired result. But let's say you want to work for 2 hours straight on your laptop. A form of friction would be having your cell phone nearby and getting constant notifications that distract you, and the 2 hours of work that you're aiming to get, you don't actually get because you're just on your phone binging or watching social media or answering messages the whole time instead of doing what you're supposed to be doing. Mental clutter or physical clutter. Mental clutter is the main one that I get. As a creative, I don't really get distracted by like social media and notifications because I've set up, and I'll talk about this later in the podcast, but I've set up methods and systems that prohibit friction from entering my life. The solution to like mental clutter and physical clutter, the alternative would be like, let's say you have a messy bedroom, and if you've got a really messy bedroom and there's loads of stuff in between you and your laptop, you're just going to come up with excuses. You're going to come up with friction to not do what you're supposed to do. So, the term friction and the way you solve it is by removing anything that can prohibit you from doing the desired action, is just starting. For me, it's like the filmmaking process, the most difficult. I don't like calling it difficult, but the most like forceful task is forcing myself to like write content or shoot content, or where it's like once you start, you get into a rhythm, but it's just the start. And that's why you want to have the least amount of resistance before you start, therefore starting more consistently, if you know what I mean. So reducing as much friction from, let's say, waking up and start to write, or waking up and shooting content. That's why there's a lot of self-improvement gurus where they'll be like, eat the frog first thing in the morning. So the term comes from get the hardest thing done out of the way first, which is a logical way of looking at things, and I think a very effective way of doing things, because once it's easier to get in your mind that, okay, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to get it done, and then it's done for, and then everything after that point onwards is easier. So it doesn't require, there's not as much friction, where when you leave it and you leave it and you leave it later and later on in the day, I'm not going to lie to you, I'm recording this late at night, and granted, I did eat the frog earlier. I was working on my website and I was working on some client work, so that's why I've recorded this late. I did have this scheduled to be a later work action. Main pursuit in life is do the hardest thing first, so if your main goal is to get in really great shape and you struggle to go to the gym, then go to the gym first thing in the morning, go there for an hour and more, 2 hours or 30 minutes or 45 minutes, whatever, get it done, get out of the way, and then after that everything is easier. Not easy, but easier. So that's a good way of reducing friction from actions. But yeah, reducing friction from mental clutter and physical clutter are the next things I want to talk about. People can be forms of friction as well. If there's people always pestering you to let's say go out or go party or go drink, and you're not aligned with that, then that is a form of friction, especially when they're hindering you from progressing towards your goals. So there's many forms of friction, and there's many ways that you may have to adjust your lifestyle in order to remove the friction from your life. And obviously one of the biggest forms of friction is just social media. Phone is probably one of the worst ones. Number one thing that I'm going to say to help reduce friction or to get more done is set limit and boundaries. So boundaries is more for people, environment. Set boundaries with people and say to them, look, these days I'm not available, or these hours I'm not available. Set boundaries to yourself. These are the most important ones. For instance, I'm only going to go on Instagram for 10 minutes a day. I'm only only going to watch TikTok for 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day. I'm only going to watch YouTube if it's learning, it's tutorials. So obviously, like in terms of people, in terms of your phone, in terms of any clutter, any physical clutter, clean up and set limits, set boundaries, be clear on what's most important to you, and then remove everything else pretty much. Is downloading app blockers. So I have this app on my iPhone called AppBlock, and on my browser on my laptop it's called BlockSite. Now I think I pay yearly for these. BlockSite I think is like €3 a year or something, or like €10 a year, and AppBlock I think is the same. And you may be like, what, I'm going to pay for a website or an app blocker? But you don't realize, or maybe you do realize, but like the amount of time you save not being on these apps is so valuable that investing in these app blockers and these website blockers are, to me, like very, very, very beneficial and very worth. You know, most people will just say, you know, most people will convince themselves that, yeah, I can quit whenever I want. I'm not addicted. I'm not this. I'm not that. And then, you know, you ask them to not go on their phone for a day or not go on TikTok for like, 4 hours, and they can't. And a lot of people are in denial. And maybe I'm talking to you when I'm saying this. A lot of people are in denial and will not accept the fact that maybe they have a problem or something that can be improved upon. Because at the end of the day, the good thing about learning you have a problem is that you can improve upon it. That's how I see things. Like, if I know that I'm wasting too much time on something, I have awareness of the problem, then that means that I can fix it. That's how I see it. Anyway, so obviously you have to be aware of the problem. But yeah, app blockers and website blockers are really, really good tools, and I think worth the €10 or whatever they are per year, because the amount of time saved, look at how much I can do, look at how much more effective I can be. So I did touch upon this previously, but pretty much get clear on what you want, get clear on exactly what is important to you. So goals, your identity, who you are, get clear on every single thing that is important to you, and then simply remove everything that is not that is possible. So I don't remember who said this. I think it was Brian Tracy, but I may be wrong. But it's that the likelihood is, if it's not taking you towards your goal, it's moving you away. And if you take that mindset into anything that you do or try or act upon, then you'll be aware to say no to things and say yes to things. If this takes me towards my goal, I'll do it. If it doesn't, then I'm not going to spend my time on that because it's moving me away. There is no such thing as neutral, like neither nor. It's either moving you towards your goal or moving you away. There is no, staying or, maintaining. That's a myth. So be be incredibly clear on what you want. Write it down. Write your vision. Write who you want to be. Write what you want to have. And be super clear on exactly what you want as a person. And then remove everything that is not that. If you know that social media is a waste of time and it's not helping you get towards your goal, then it is taking you away, especially social media. If you're truly making a business or achieving your goals is truly important to you, then remove anything that is not that. That's kind of the gist of removing friction in that sense. Step 3 to removing friction is clean. Set maybe a weekly or a monthly date or day to clean. Clean your mind, clean your room, clean your house, clean your environment, clean up. Make sure that your environment's clean. Make sure that your mind's clean. Make sure you don't have any mental or physical clutter, because of course that is friction as well. When you have things in your mind of I need to do this, or I need to talk to them, or I need to, random stuff like that, whether it's people, whether it's projects, whether it's tasks or errands that are on your mind, try and get them off. Try and figure out a method, figure out a system. For me, I've spent a lot of time building systems in order to not have friction in my mind. Is one of the main things that the book Getting Things Done talks about. Having the feeling that what you're doing in that moment is exactly what you should be doing in that moment, and there's not something else more effective or more productive to be doing in that moment in time other than the task at hand. But of course, this requires lots of management. This requires a lot of knowing what you want to do, what projects are on, what things you're working towards. You have to have a very clear vision on what things you want to achieve and what things you want to do in a period of time in order to know that every action is being conducive towards what you want. Now, if you want like a more comprehensive breakdown on this step, I would actually recommend just reading Getting Things Done, because the book will explain to you best the term clean. Read Getting Things Done and apply the systems. This is a long process. Having no friction in your brain, no friction in your physical environment, and actually having a system where you can log every idea, every concept, every project, every goal, everything in a certain way. It's a very comprehensive book. It's a really good read. Probably worth reading twice. I've only read it the once, but I'm definitely going to reread the notes at some point, because the systems have definitely been extremely beneficial for me. Key takeaways from this podcast, as it has been a pretty long one, is remove anything that is not moving you towards your goals. That is the biggest takeaway. If you do that, you're going to be like not one step closer to achieving your goals, you're going to be like 100 steps closer to your goals. Because what I've realized is that effectiveness or getting things done is more about removing objects and removing friction from thought to idea than it is about actually doing more. Yeah, that's one of the biggest takeaways that I've taken from these 3 steps. And as I mentioned, these podcasts are also kind of messages to myself. But yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you gained something, and I hope you learned something from my learnings, as I'm on this journey as you are. So anyway, this is Building in Public episode 21, and I shall see you next week.